Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
Just
to the
to
flag
of the United States of America,
to the
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Be seated. Nicole, it is now your turn for roll call.
Thank you, Chair Norwood. Starting with Chair Norwood,
Here.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Here.
Commissioner Mundra,
Here,
Commissioner Rice,
Here.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Awasthi,
Yes.
you and Alternate Commissioner Gomez.
In attendance.
Thank you. And
Okay,
at this
thank you.
point, I'd like to note that Alternate Commissioner Deepak Awasthi will be seated in place of the vacant and unfilled real estate seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Item number 5 on the agenda, we have, is there a motion to approve the agenda for September 13th, 2021?
I make the motion.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second, a roll call vote?
Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra,
yes,
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
and Commissioner Awasthi.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
I'd also like to note very quickly, I didn't get a chance to during roll call. Apologies, Chair Norwood. At this meeting, we have all of our regularly seated members in attendance. And on the roster, we only have one vacant and unseated position, which is the real estate seat. And at this meeting, the alternate Commissioner Awasthi was seated in place of that vacant seat now. And so alternate Commissioner Gomez will remain as an alternate. And that means Commissioner Gomez is welcome to participate in any of the discussions, but will not be a voting member for the items.
Thank you.
If I can also add, I did get a note from one of our commissioners that may only be able to stay with us for the first 30 or 45 minutes. So I believe after that, Commissioner Gomez may be able to be promoted to a voting member. Thank you.
So at that time, when the commissioner does leave earlier, is there a procedural item where we have to promote, or not promote, but approve Commissioner Gomez to be a voting member at that time, or will that default?
Nicole, I believe you have the handbook in front of you. I think for the meeting minutes, it would be good to call it out to have a record.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because we never vote for seating of alternates in other meetings, so I would assume it's just procedural and not necessarily something that has to be moved. But I do think it needs to be recognized, though.
So
Yeah, for a good part of the last year and a half, we have been down 2 commissioners, so it tends to work for our 2 alternates. But now we're just down the real estate seat.
Right. So at the time when one of our commissioners leaves, we'll just either Nicole or myself will let the record show that alternate Commissioner Gomez will now be involved in the voting proceedings for this particular meeting on September 13th, 2021.
Yes, thank you.
Will do.
Now we're on item 6 on the agenda, approval of the minutes for August 16th, 2021. As a reminder, anyone that was not here on that for that meeting would be in the position to abstain. So is there a motion?
Make a motion.
I can second it.
We have a motion and a second.
Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
and Commissioner Awasti.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 7, public forum. Oral public comments may be provided live during the commission meeting by first registering for the Zoom meeting in advance or providing an email address and a name. Are there any public comments at this time?
Let me stop my screen sharing for a minute. No public comments at this time, Chair Norwood.
Okay, we have no public comments at this time. Item 8, announcements. Are there any announcements at this time?
I would like to give just a little update on the Milpitas Chamber.
Okay.
Shall I proceed?
Yes.
So the Milpitas Chamber, with all things happening at this point, is planning to have a second in-person event. And the mixer is at Westmont in their courtyard down by Montague and I believe that's Main Street. So everybody's welcome. The last one was at the Outback, and everybody that had been vaccinated and could prove it was allowed in. And so that's going to be the same requirement for this mixer, sorry. And, we've been promoting Discover Milpitas, which is a visual directory, and that has been, growing, but slowly. And, all businesses, whether they're chamber members or not, are allowed to come and post their business there. So it gives some visibility when people, whether they're visiting Milpitas or they're just looking for some business to be able to be found. So the visual directory is pretty engaging. And then other than that, the chamber is just preparing for the festival next year, the wine festival for next year, and we're still trying to put a job fair together as soon as we can. And of course, there's been involvement with the Better Block to support that process, particularly for the beer garden. So that's about all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mondra. I see Commissioner Jones has his hand up.
I just wanted to get the date and the time for the mixer. I didn't catch that.
I need to get your email and put you on the list so that you're always receiving those updates. So I'll do that after this
Thank you.
meeting. Thank you, Marshall.
Are there any other announcements?
Don't we usually go from commissioners, then to any of our council members, and then for staff on announcements?
Yes. So I was looking for if any other commissioners had any feedback, and then we go to staff, and then we would go to council. Milpitas Unified School District will hold its regularly scheduled board meeting tomorrow, September 14th, 7 p.m. We are in person. People are allowed to attend with pre-register. We're also still offering the ability to participate online via Zoom, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Today, Milpitas Unified School District, as well as Mayor Tran and Councilmember Anthony Pham attended the San Jose City College Centennial Celebration, 100 years at San Jose City College. That also happened earlier today. Those are a couple of things that have happened. And then, of course, we have football coming up this Friday at California High School in San Ramon.
Awesome.
Staff announcements.
Thank you,
Are there
Chair
any
Norwood.
Yes.
There are no announcements from staff. Thank you.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Hello, everybody. I'm joining from my phone today, but I definitely wanted to just say thank you to all of you for your hard work and volunteers. I think the council is just definitely just keeping an eye out. We should be receiving a report shortly in terms of a quarter update on the finances of our city to see how we have been impacted by COVID. And so definitely I invite you to, stay tuned for that. Personally, as a council member, we have been visiting our small businesses. We will be proposing an idea coming forward next Tuesday to help our businesses get certified for a minority a business. And so we definitely want to support our minority and women-owned businesses and make sure that they're able to apply for the funding that is out there once they receive the certification. So definitely, I want to just thank all of the commissioners. You guys are doing an amazing job. I definitely appreciate the staff. We're all just staying focused, making sure that we continue to build opportunities and that we are bringing the resources. I will be jumping on a call with the governor sometime next week. So I'm really excited that they're starting to include our city and that I am in these conversations as we help rebuild California. And so it's really excited to represent Milpitas on the state level. And so I'll definitely keep you updated on those updates as they are available. Thank you so much, Chair.
You're welcome. Item 9, business items. 9A, the American Rescue Plan Act update. Assistant City Manager Ashwini Kantak.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the EDTC Commission. Ashwini Kantak, Assistant City Manager in Milpitas. And I'll wait to see, Ron, are you able to bring it up, or I can share my screen as well? If we could go to slideshow, please. And so I'm really happy to be here today to present an update on the American Rescue Plan Act funding for that the city of Milpitas is receiving. We've had many discussions about this with council, with the community, and wanted to share sort of an overall plan as well as really focus on some of the components of the economic recovery portion that the city is looking to invest in. So if we could go to the next slide, please. And here's just a brief agenda with some background on the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, as we refer to it. And yeah, we can keep going, Ron. Thank you. So in terms of background, as we probably are all very well aware, in March, President Biden signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act. It's a total $1.9 trillion stimulus package, basically to address the economic impacts of the pandemic. And out of the 1.9 trillion, about 350 billion of a state and local funding. And Milpitas, because it has a population of over 50,000, we actually directly get allocation coming to us and not through the state. So the U.S. Department of Treasury has issued an interim final rule on the use of these funds on May 10th. Unfortunately, the final rule is still pending, so that's something we've been really eagerly waiting for, because even though the interim final rule kind of outlines certain things, there's things about procurement and compliance that we would really like to see in the final rule before we start to kind of award these dollars, especially to external entities. At this time, what we're trying to do, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later in the presentation, but what we're trying to do is to kind of go with the most stringent requirements in terms of processes according to federal requirements, and then wait for the final rule in terms of any kind of streamlining that the Treasury outlines for us. And so Milpitas is receiving a little over $16.7 million. And this is specifically in the coronavirus local fiscal recovery funding. There are other means of funding through ARPA that go directly to benefit our community as well, such as rent relief, business assistance. But this is money that is coming to the city of Milpitas specifically. And as we've had many discussions with council, part of this money is going to assist the community, and then part of it is going towards kind of city services, again, to assist the community eventually. So of the 16.7 million, we already received over 8.3 million. So 50% of it we received in June of this year, and the remaining half will be received in June of next year. And the funds do need to be encumbered or expended by December 31st, 2024. And funds that are encumbered but not necessarily expended by that time frame need to be expended by December 31st, 2026. So there could be some infrastructure projects where we award the contract, encumber the funds, but then we need to make sure everything's completed by 2026. Next slide, please. And so I talked about, we've had several discussions with council, public meetings. We also had a lot of feedback from the community as part of the budget process, as well as part of the CDBG process. And we use all of that input to kind of inform us on the use of these funds. With council, we engaged council, the full council on May 11th, got a lot of great input on investment ideas. And then individual council members also subsequently sent requests. So we had a total of 63 requests from council itself. And again, this is all based on kind of what council is hearing from the community as well. And most of these requests were kind of in 5 different areas. So financial assistance, social services for the community, economic vitality, infrastructure, public safety, and technology. And so that's kind of, when I talk about the preliminary investment framework, you'll see it's kind of focused on these areas because that's where we were seeing the most need. Again, as I mentioned, we had an extensive community engagement process with the development of our annual budget, as well as the CDBG funding process. And then we had multiple meetings on ARPA itself. So in June, we met twice with council on June 8th and June 21st, and council adopted kind of an investment framework, including some fiscal guidelines and 5 investment areas, which are aligned with the request areas that I talked about. And we also received some additional direction on the preliminary investment plan. And then we came back to council in August, early August. So on August 9th, council approved the preliminary investment plan and proposed programs, and also delegated authority to the city manager to kind of move forward with the appropriation and contract approvals as needed for each of the programs. And part of this, why we needed the delegation of authority, is we still did not have final guidance from ARPA. And we want to make sure that everything is in compliance with that guidance. So as we know more, we're able to move forward with expending these funds. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. And so here's the fiscal guidelines that we had outlined for council and that were approved by council. And we wanted to make sure that we were looking, as I mentioned, it's a $1.9 trillion package. And so there's a lot of other funding besides this pot of money that's coming directly to the government. We know school districts are receiving money. We know, again, residents, businesses have other ways of getting assistance. And we want to make sure that we can identify those and promote those in the community to the extent possible so that we can maximize the use of our local ARPA funds. We also recommended that one-time ARPA funds be for one-time expenditures, such as investment in infrastructure or technology with minimum ongoing operating costs. This is important because if you use one-time funds to fund something that's ongoing, then the general fund has to pick up the ongoing expenditures. And to that end, the third bullet is about avoiding ongoing general fund commitments, which is a high priority for council. Also avoid creating a structural budget deficit if restoring any reduced services. So through the budget process, we had reduced quite a few services. And again, we wanted to make sure that we were using these one-time dollars thoughtfully. And then leverage other partners, so regional agencies, nonprofit partners, as well as existing programs to maximize efficiency. So for example, we've already been working with folks on kind of a rent relief program, a small business assistance program. We wanted to make sure we could maximize the efforts already on those programs so that we could minimize the administrative costs. Next slide, please. And so these are the 5 investment areas, again, tied to the requests that we received. So community services, and this is really about providing funding assistance to low and moderate income residents, as well as social services to many vulnerable sections of the community, including LGBTQ+ community, victims of domestic violence and abuse, at-risk youth, as well as services for seniors. Economic vitality, this is an area that we're going to spend some more time talking about today, and it's really about supporting rebuilding our local economy, assisting our businesses that have been hard hit by the pandemic. Infrastructure, investing in eligible infrastructure projects as part of the budget balancing for this year. Because the city's revenues were also hard hit, we had to defund several CIP projects, capital improvement projects. And so we wanted to make sure that we could use some of these one-time funds to make that whole. Public safety, prioritizing public safety services as well as equipment and technology. So investing in hardware, software, and protecting critical infrastructure. And we've all, through the pandemic, we went virtual. We're back into kind of a hybrid environment. We weren't necessarily set up for that. So that does require investment. And also there were security concerns with everybody working virtually. So investing in some of these areas. Next slide, please. And so this is, yes.
Were you holding questions until the end, or is this interactive?
Oh, anytime, Chair.
Sure. Okay. Oh, so you have the investment plan summary here, and then you'll go in a little bit of detail on each of these areas?
Yeah, we were going to focus on the economic vitality piece of it, but happy to respond to questions in any of the other areas. So I'll just kind of cover what's under some of these. And then if you have questions, we can go into more detail. And Alex actually is going to cover the areas under economic vitality after this slide. So again, you see the kind of 5 areas, and we also have administration because there's a lot of compliance and monitoring requirements related to the use of these funds. So we have to set aside money for that. Mm-hmm. And so the 5 areas of investment, community services, as I talked about, so that's financial assistance as well as social services. Economic vitality we'll talk about in more detail. Infrastructure, our focus was really on kind of our parks infrastructure, more of the critical needs, as well as some of the infrastructure needs on public safety side and our city facilities, because we had to make improvements related to kind of responding to COVID and changing things on our HVAC and putting in safety controls and stuff in the facilities. And on public safety, there's some amount of funding that is for public safety staffing, and then there's funding set aside for equipment and facilities. And technology, as I mentioned, we again needed to invest in kind of supporting this hybrid working environment, which we believe is here to stay, and also making sure that security is high priority. So with that, we have that totals up to 16.7 million. What we have on the third column is kind of for this fiscal year. We're planning to spend about half of it, and then the rest of it is over the next couple of years. And if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Alex to walk us through the economic vitality.
Tiffany, I have a question on the funding that has been allocated for 2021 and 2022. I think, first of all, thank you. You've done a great job of identifying the investment areas. The question that I have, how did we determine what funds should go in which area? Like say, economic vitality, we are allocating 2.1 million and the infrastructure 2.4 million. Was there any discussion? How do we came up with the budget for each area?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. We actually had several discussions with council. So like I mentioned, when we started out in May, we were really getting feedback from the council in terms of what areas would they like to see investment. And that's informed by things they hear from the community. And we had also made some recommendations based on all of the engagement we had done through our budget process. So we kind of knew where the needs were. We also had what's called the Community Development and Block Grant Program, which provides a lot of services to kind of low income and moderate income folks in the city. And so through all of that dialogue, we started out with something, and then actually it has been like economic vitality. Actually, you can see on this chart receives, I mean, it's the second highest area of investment, and it really speaks to economic recovery being a really high priority for the council. And as we walk through, you'll see kind of the areas that it's going to. And we actually had, at one point, we had proposed more money going into technology and infrastructure. And we kind of went through iterations where more money was allocated to help the business community and just kind of economic vitality in general in the city.
Follow-up question. I would have thought that economic vitality, considering the situation we had in 2020, more money would have been allocated. So I would be interested to see how this decision was made, how to allocate the money to economic vitality versus infrastructure, and specifically what is included in the infrastructure that is being funded.
Sure, and I'm happy to we are going to walk through economic vitality, so maybe Alex can walk you through the next slide, okay. And then I can come back with what's in infrastructure. Actually, most of infrastructure, like I mentioned, is going towards our parks, and a lot of kind of safety and more critical improvements in the parks. We were getting a lot of feedback from the community on kind of condition of parks and investment needed. And that's where most of it is going, most of the 5 million.
Thank you.
So Alex, you want to?
I've got one short question. Hopefully this is really easy to answer. It's about allocation. I'm just curious. So you mentioned that the allocations were based off of, because we're over 50,000 citizens. Is it by person? So we get more money, by each citizen? For example, if a neighbor city has one less individual, they're getting one less, or is it brackets like your tax funds when you're in certain groups? Is it like 50,000 to 100,000 gets the 16.7 million, or how's that broken?
No, it's based on population, and it's the allocation formula that's used for CDBG as well. So it's the same allocation formula, and it's really proportional to the population. So it's not under 50, there was a different way of allocating, and then over 50, it just depends on the population. So there aren't like ranges, it's just based on your population. Okay, so next slide, please. And I can actually walk you through this slide, and then Alex will cover the 3 areas in more detail. So here's kind of the line items that you see and that make up the 4.7 million plus allocated to economic vitality. So small business assistance, and this is businesses impacted by the pandemic. And as you may recall, we had a Microenterprise grant program that we basically allocated $5,000. We had a way of picking the businesses, and 38 businesses received that $5,000 grant award. So this is kind of based on a similar concept, but different eligibility requirements, and Alex will walk you through that. But as you can see, The amount slated for this is much larger than what we had for our previous grant program. So 1.5 million, and we anticipate this being done over a 2-year period, so $750,000 each for each of the years. Hotel business assistance, we know that the hotels have been really hard hit. We have 20 hotels in Milpitas, and this money is actually really they not only have been hit hard by the pandemic, but they've also had to make improvements in their facilities to respond to kind of safety requirements. And so this money goes towards helping them do that. And each hotel would just receive the same amount of money, the $10,000. And that would be all allocated in the first year. We have an accessory dwelling unit program and $1.5 million allocated to that, spread out over 3 years, so $500,000 each. A portion of this money, a large portion of this money is intended to actually waive permit fees, inspection fees, if there's sort of an amnesty program for ones that are already built, but it's really to encourage and incentivize the building of ADUs that gets to a few city priorities. So building more kind of affordable housing by the nature of the units, and also kind of fostering economic growth. We assume there'd be construction activity related to this, as well as an increase in property taxes as it enhances the value of properties. And so a portion of this is also slated for developing kind of prototype ADUs so that it becomes easier for people to build them as well, besides the waiving of permit fees. Main Street revitalization. There are a lot of efforts underway in the city towards revitalizing Main Street. We actually have to bring this back for a more detailed discussion to council in October. But at this point, $500,000 is allocated to this, spread out over 2 years. And we anticipate a large amount of this will go for facade of street front improvements, as well as staffing to support a variety of things that are part of the Main Street revitalization effort. Community events include, and this could include grants to other entities to host the events, as well as staffing on our side to host these events. And that's something that we kind of have overall buy-in from council, but we would bring back more details on the types of events as time goes by. For the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce, which supports all of our local businesses, we have $200,000 allocated for them, with $100,000 each year. I'm not sure why that says 1 year, but it's really $100,000 this year as well as next year. And workforce development, this is $300,000. This is in addition to other things that we already have underway for workforce development. We're partnering with Milpitas Unified School District, Nova Works, other entities. So this kind of enhances all of the work that we are currently doing, and that is a big priority for us as part of our economic development strategy. So this is spread over 3 years. And then a lot of additional work. As you know, our staff is, 3 people doing everything else pre-pandemic, implementing the economic development strategy, and now adding on the ARPA work. And so this is a limited term economic development specialist position that I think was discussed in this commission as well. And so that has been approved as part of the investment plan for 2 years. And so that totals up again to $4.73 million for economic vitality, with $2.1 million to be spent in this fiscal year. And with that, Alex, I think you have the next slide.
I have a question, Ashwani, on this one.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may ask.
Sure.
Under small business assistance related to pandemic, we have allocated 1.5 million. Do we have any data to support that how many businesses in the city of Milpitas were impacted? And what is the formula for distribution? Because different businesses, like if it is say hotel business or restaurant business, even the restaurants, they were unevenly impacted during this pandemic. Do we have any data to support that whether 1.5 million will be able to assist, say, 30 businesses versus 50 businesses? How did we come up with 1.5 million? And then do we have data to support that how many businesses would benefit from these funds?
Sure, and I'm going to hand it off to Alex for some of the data questions, but I just wanted to touch upon two things. One that, I don't know that there's science behind each of these numbers. It was really about trying to kind of balance how funds would be allocated to benefit the community as a whole, as well as to take care. I mean, I just wanted to provide some perspective. Milpitas is very unique in how we're kind of looking at these funds. We've been talking to a lot of the other cities in the county, and most of the cities have used their ARPA dollars to balance their budget. So we're very, very unique in that we're kind of using this, kind of mixing it with addressing some of the city needs because of the loss of revenue, and also using it to assist the community, which is, we believe it was intended for that. The council strongly believes it was intended for that, but many other cities did balance their budget with the use of ARPA dollars. And so I think when you look at some of these amounts, there isn't, again, it's, to achieve this outcome, we're putting this amount of money. It's really, here's the total pot we have, and here's all the things we want to kind of help. And this may be, fair distribution. And the other point I also wanted to make was that the Treasury is not really asking for a final plan. So it's intended to be adjusted over time. So if we see that the need is greater in one area compared to another, we anticipate bringing that back for adjustment to council. We will come back with periodic updates to council and any adjustments as needed, as we're seeing. That's why some of these are spread over years, so we can see in the first year, how did it work? Like ADUs, I mean, we put aside 1.5 million. If not too many people are taking advantage of that, we'd want to take that money and put it somewhere else. So we would bring it back. So there's no final plan. As long as we expend the funds by the Treasury deadlines, there's no final plan. And in terms of data, helping businesses, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Before Alice gets started, I'd like to make just one quick point. Customarily, when working with hotels and restaurants, you usually use a ratio based upon keys for a hotel. So if we're looking at $10,000, it'd be divided into the number of keys. And it's a great way to level the playing field for the smaller hotel to be able to receive the same amount with the larger hotels. Same thing with restaurants. Look at a per seat count when divvying up the funds. Because obviously $10,000 means a big deal for a smaller hotel, but it may not be as much for a larger hotel. So this, again, levels the playing field. Just a comment.
And as we need, this is Commissioner Rice. I had one quick question. You made the point that some people or some of the cities are using it to balance their budget. So by using the money to fund these initiatives, which I think absolutely is the right thing to do we have a balanced budget? Or are we still going to have a shortfall for the city of Milpitas that we're going to need to make up through some other avenue?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we do have a balanced budget for this year. We're required to, and we were really happy that we could do that without the use of ARPA or without the use of reserves. And we did that through a combination of things. I mean, the community helped greatly by approving Measure F, the additional sales tax. Many of our bargaining groups gave up pay raises. We defunded projects. So we used a variety of things, reduced our expenditures on a lot of services, defunded positions. So we were able to balance our budget through that without the use of these dollars.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's pretty credible that you have been able to balance the budget without tapping it into these funds. So I think kudos to your team.
Thank you. And everybody, it's the community council staff, everybody, the bargaining groups, so everybody stepped up.
Thank you.
I'd like to do a time check right now.
I'm sorry?
I want to refer Nicole or Alex. We want to do a time check in terms of what we have allocated for this particular presentation and where we are in that time check.
Nicole, can you check? We might be just about there. I think the next few slides would be helpful because it gets a little bit deeper into the small business assistance grant, the hotel business assistance, and the work with the Chamber of Commerce.
And then I also noticed that we are more than a half hour in. So did one of our commissioners have to go so that we can recognize that Alternative Commissioner Gomez will now be voting?
I'm not sure which commissioner was supposed to have
Yes,
to leave.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to clarify which commissioner just left.
That was supposed to be me. This is Juliet, Commissioner Gomez. I'm going to be jumping off in about 15 to 20 minutes. So
Okay.
no need to do the reestablishment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ron, if we could go to the next slide, please.
Before I start, I want to make sure Commissioner Dayani, we could talk offline on some of the statistics and the data that you were wanting to learn more about. I'm happy to share more of that. So hopefully that's okay. And I'll just go ahead and get into these 3 slides. This is just really meant to provide additional background to what our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak, has just provided. As she indicated, last year, there was a Milpitas Microenterprise grant program. There was $200,000 of community development block grant dollars specifically set aside from federal funding to help low and moderate income people and businesses. Of the $200,000, there was 38 grants of $5,000 each. Our fiscal agent charges 5%, so that was $10,000. So we had $190,000 that went out to our community for specifically microenterprise businesses defined as 1 to 5 employees. For all intents and purposes, it was very successful. After the businesses received the 38 grants, several students from an urban studies class at Stanford University conducted an evaluation. After this, I can provide you that report if you're interested. Again, that was in 2020. This year in 2021, you've heard our Assistant City Manager talk about ARPA dollars. A couple of meetings ago, our City Council directed approximately $1.2 million to be set aside for a small business grant program. But most recently, I believe at the August 9th City Council meeting, the City Council obviously acknowledges the difficulty that our business community is experiencing, and they had a consensus to increase that amount from $1.2 million to $1.5 million. The dollars, just like the 2020 Milpitas Microenterprise Grant Program, will be able to be used for such things as rent and mortgage, payroll and operating expenses for products and services. I have some really good data related to this evaluation from last year. The majority of our businesses actually used the dollars. Looks like, I'm looking at my data right here, approximately 80 to 100% of the grant funds were used for paying rent and mortgage. We keep hearing the dire need specifically for rent and mortgage. What you have before you on this chart is a comparison. On the left-hand side, just to orient you, is a column of what would have been the 2020 Microenterprise Grant Program compared to what would be the 2021 Small Business Grant Program utilizing ARPA dollars. There were lots of lessons learned, both from staff and from the City Council. And really what we're trying to achieve this time around is to make it easier for businesses to be able to apply and to be eligible. We want to make sure to lower the barriers to entry to receive these funds. Last year, for example, on the top left-hand side, operated businesses needed to be in Milpitas prior to March 16, 2017. The City Council wanted to ensure that businesses had a long-term presence. What we propose now, and the City Council agreed, is that all businesses with a current business license and that they meet all these other requirements below this right column are eligible. Last year, we were working specifically with retail, restaurants, and service sector and mom and pop businesses. Again, what we're trying to do is make all businesses eligible as long as they have between 1 and 25 employees. This row here did not change. Physical commercial storefronts are eligible. Businesses within those are eligible. We did notice that one of the more challenging requirements was for these businesses to not exceed $2 million in net adjusted income in calendar year 2018 and 2019. We recognized that was pretty challenging. Many of the applicants actually exceeded that, and therefore they were not able to proceed into the lottery. So this year, the City Council has said not applicable, so we can move forward. We've already talked about the employee count. This second to the last row, again, during 2020, we utilized community development block grant dollars, which are specifically meant to assist low to moderate income people. We're not using CDBG dollars this year, it's ARPA dollars, and so that's not applicable. And we are continuing to ensure that businesses are in good standing with the city, meaning they have an active business license, no code enforcement issues. We did recognize last year that many of these businesses did have code enforcement issues, and in many instances were able to take care of those code enforcement issues in order to be eligible to go into this random lottery. And then we want to make sure that their California Labor Commission office relationship is in good standing. Next slide, please. We recognize that we have a very important relationship with our local hotels. They play a very important role in our regional economy and local economy. And we like to say it's a multiplier role within the hospitality area. And in fiscal year 2018, 2019, just to give you a better idea of what that means for us, in that fiscal year of 2018, 2019, roughly 12% of the city's general fund came from revenues related to our transit occupancy taxes. Not only do they provide very significant revenues, but they obviously create good jobs. For the experience that the hotels have been, going through has been probably the industry that has been hit the hardest. They've just been suffering tremendous, not only revenue losses and job losses. The RevPAR is revenue per available room, and that's a very important metric within the hotel industry. What we noticed last year, there was roughly a RevPAR of about 60% reduction in Milpitas within the 20 hotels. That translates directly to a 60% loss in the city's TOT revenues. We keep hearing from various industries, but we seem to hear this from our hotel industry in particular. The job shortage, the labor shortage is really affecting them. The Department of Treasury, ARPA funds are to be used to aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. For this particular offering to our hotels, we will not utilize a fiscal agent the way we will for the small business assistance grant program. We'll do that in-house. And so it'll be a combination between the finance department and the Office of Economic Development. And I have just one more quick slide here. It's related to our Chamber of Commerce. I just want to make sure that we get through that quickly. Next slide, please, Ron. So we know that as businesses have closed, unfortunately, their membership has been decreased as well. So council did direct an increase of proposed allocation. Initially, there was conversations about $100,000 being directed to the Chamber of Commerce, but most recently, our city council increased that to $200,000. These initiatives will, as you see on the screen, include a business workshop or workshops, a job fair that's supposed to happen this month, but depending on the response, they may host another 2 crab feed in March of 2022 and an art and wine festival in May of 2022. The funding shall go toward an event consultant that will provide costs for these business workshops, the job fair, the 2 events, the crab feed, art and wine festival. We want to make sure that this event coordinator will help them develop plans, schedules, and performance metrics. So these are one-time dollars, and the Chamber of Commerce will receive $100,000 in two installments. That's the end of my presentation. I don't know if we need to get to the next slide. Seems like
It's just really brief next steps, I believe. So as I mentioned, we're still kind of waiting for the final rule from Treasury. We do have AG Witt, a consultant who is experienced in working with the federal government on FEMA as well as ARPA allocations. And so we're working with them on kind of the contracting, reporting, procurement requirements. We are returning to council on a few things. Like I mentioned, we're going to return with a more detailed discussion on Main Street. We're also going to return with a detailed discussion on workforce development. And we just had some direction from them on the rent and mortgage relief program. So with that, we have the first quarterly financial report will be due in fall, and we basically, this is for council, we will be incorporating any appropriation information in there. So, but as I noted, I think more to the point earlier that this is going to be kind of an ongoing plan where we report out on implementation and make adjustments as needed based on the needs of the community, the city, and kind of the requirements of the Treasury Department. So I think that's the end of the presentation. Happy to take any additional questions. Recognizing you have a lot of other agenda items, I'm happy to also, chat with you offline or provide additional information if you'd like by email.
In the interest of time, maybe we can discuss this thing offline. I don't want to.
Sure.
But I do have several questions, and we can do it offline.
Sure. Happy to schedule a meeting. Thank you.
Let's bring up the agenda for the time check.
I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of work and there's a lot of figures to have put together, and it's just a pretty awesome work, and it is so important for us to move forward knowingly, particularly in the financial arena. And I just had a request that there was no forward-looking statements in here. If we could maybe, not really in the near future, but somewhere in the distant future, is for you to hear some forward-looking statements like, what if we had not done this, or what we are expecting, what the impacts are, if you could quantize them. In whatever areas are possible to quantize. And we can discuss the rest of it offline. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole, could you do me a favor and show me the remaining items on the agenda, because we are now 15 minutes past. So we have the 5 o'clock. What else do we have? We have Better Block, 5:30. What else?
Manufacturing Day is our last item, and that's scheduled for 6 p.m.
Yeah, so for future reference, Alex, I would appreciate if we, on the items on the agenda, we allocate a minimum 30 minutes. And then, because this is fairly consistent in terms of when these types of presentations happen, any type of interaction pushes us way beyond the amount of time that we have necessarily allocated as far as 15 minutes for this particular item. So let's just look at it in the future that we allocate a minimum half an hour per item. Is there a motion to receive at this time? Is there a motion to receive the update?
Before we do that, we need to make sure to check on a public forum or any public questions.
Thank you for that. Nicole, are there any public questions?
I do not see any raised hands for public comment.
Thank you for that, Alex. Seeing that there are no hands raised.
The update.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. It's a roll call.
Sorry, who gave the second?
Commissioner Dariani.
Okay. All right, starting with Chair Norwood.
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil.
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra.
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
and Commissioner Awasthi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
I will share my screen in a moment.
If we were to look at the items that are remaining on the agenda, is there anything that could possibly be moved to a future agenda, or do we have to cover each of these items in this particular agenda?
Norwood, the first three are really important and time sensitive. We can follow up with a info memo or an email as it relates to our 5th annual Manufacturing Day event, which is happening October 7th.
Okay.
So if that's the way to gain back another 10 minutes or so.
We have Councilmember Dominguez with a hand raised.
Yes, I also think Better Block is critically something that this commission needs to get updated on. It's been moving really, really fast, and I believe that this commission definitely deserves to be updated, especially with the last minute events that have occurred last week. And so I definitely want to be very respectful of the work that has been done. And Chair, I would kindly ask that you move that item forward so we could get that update and each commissioner is updated on what is going on with Better Block. Thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilmember Dominguez. Okay. Item 9B, City of Milpitas COVID-19 Workforce Recovery Program.
Chair, this is Alex Andrade, your Economic Development Director. I had some words I was going to say before, but we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to hand it off to Daniel Daegu, our Economic Development Coordinator, just to say this is a very important component of our economic development strategy. It's part of our workforce development and education resources implementation action. So thank you to the Economic Development and Trade Commission and of course the City Council for approving our economic development strategy last year. So this is a very important body of work. Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to our Economic Development Coordinator. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade, for the introduction, and good afternoon, distinguished members of the Economic Development and Trade Commission. As Alex mentioned, Daniel Daegu, and I'm the city's Economic Development Coordinator. Today's presentation is really to build off of last month's meeting, where today you'll learn about phase 2 and how we plan to implement phase 2 over the next several months. So joining us today to give this presentation is the NovaWorks team, who you've met multiple times during the last several months. And they will be presenting the phase 2. We have the Director of Employment Development, Chris Stadelman, and Program Manager, Jennifer Shire, who will be giving that piece of the presentation. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as a reminder, the purpose of the COVID-19 Workforce Recovery Program is to increase access to career pathway programs and to help Milpitas residents with barriers to employment to enter the workforce in skilled occupations. And so you'll learn a lot about that when the Nova team gives their presentation in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So this here is something you've seen multiple times. This is really the project schedule. As you can see, it's a 2-phase project. Phase 1, which we have completed, and last month we gave you the findings for phase 1. And then phase 2 is the boxes that are filled in blue, and those are all pending, and we're in the process of moving towards phase 2. And this project, just for background, is a $40,000 contract with the NovaWorks team. Phase 1 is a $20,000 budget, and phase 2 is $20,000. So we are slowly but quickly also moving into phase 2. Next slide, please. So this is just next steps and recommendation. The next step is this item will go before the City Council for action on October 19th, 2021. And the recommendation for this item today will be to receive a staff update and provide feedback on the proposed Career Navigation Accelerator program, which you'll be learning about very shortly. Next slide. So as we like to do with items that require the Commission's feedback, we like to typically set up questions that the commission can answer. And so if there's time, we'll be able to have these questions be answered by the commission. If not, we are more than willing to make ourselves available and have conversations after this meeting in order to get the commission's feedback. But we're really asking 3 questions. One is, what thoughts do you have on the Career Navigation Accelerator program? Question number 2, who should we identify as marketing and outreach partners? And then question number 3, should we host a community workshop forum on the Career Navigation Accelerator program? And again, you'll get a whole bunch of information on this, and the questions will make a lot more sense after the presentation by the NobleWorks team. So with that, if we can move to the next slide. And is Director Chris Stadelman available?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Norwood and Vice Chair McNeil, members of the commission. I was going to go into a little bit more detail about how phase 1 has led us to phase 2, but I'm really hoping to get to the questions tonight. Remember, we had such a rich discussion last month. So I'm just going to shorten everything down and say that what we've learned so far has led us to customize our NovaWorks' My Plan career navigation curriculum, to customize it, to shorten it, to turn it into something of a boot camp, what we're calling an accelerator for residents and employees in Milpitas. So our expert is here tonight to walk you through the curriculum. So in the interest of time, we'll just jump right in. Jen Chire is a manager with NovaWorks. She's in charge of our job center and our training team, and is a genius at curriculum development. So I'll stick around in case of questions later, but go right ahead, Jen.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And we'll just go to the next slide. We can talk about our agenda. So I thought I would briefly touch on the needs of job seekers that we see in the community, the desired outcomes of the program we've designed, talk through the phases of a job search, which is our curriculum, and then how that plays into the Career Navigation Accelerator program that we are customizing for Milpitas residents, and then talk through our implementation plan. So next slide. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about a typical job seeker. You know, Nova's been in the business of doing career development and career navigation services for over 30 years. I've been with Nova for the past 22 years, doing career advising and now management. And across that time, some universal truths that we know about job seekers is, 1, they are overwhelmed by the job search process. And often they don't know where to start. What they do know is they want a job. They want a job that was better than their last job and a job that paid more than their last job. But most people don't really know how to do a job search. People aren't instructed in career navigation. They're taught how to do their profession. We have the tools and know-how around job search. Job seekers are also looking for structure. It's common that, you know, people work 40 plus hours a week and get everything done. And then they enter job search where they're not working at all and nothing seems to get done. So having structure seems to be a really important element that helps job seekers be successful. And the last thing is, job seekers need guided next steps. So again, how do they actually walk through the career navigation process? What should they be working on at any phase in the job search? And we can give them that support. I see there's a question from a commissioner, hand up.
Oh, sorry, that was not lowered from a long time ago.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
All right, so let's go on to the next slide. So with the job seeker in mind, we wanted to create the career navigation to give job seekers a strong foundation of the job search process so that they really understand what they should be doing at each phase, a greater awareness of the local economy. So who are the key employers in Milpitas? What are the key industries? And how can they target themselves to those opportunities? We want to make sure that they're focused on what they want to do next, because again, job seekers can get lost in the process. We want to help each attendee create an individualized training and skill development plan, having ongoing access to resources, and of course, for those who are eligible, to have them join the NobleWorks program after this Accelerator bootcamp so they can get ongoing support and additional services. Next slide. So what I want to do now is just walk you through what we consider the fundamental outline of a job search. We call it the phases of a job search, and it's available all through a public access website called My Plan that we host. Everything that we'll be teaching in this Career Accelerator will be open and available for the whole community to access. But importantly for the attendees, they'll have ongoing support and information. So our 4 phases of a job search are broken into: first, does the job seeker have a clear focus? Do they know what they want to do? Do they know if there's a job market? Do they know if they're marketable? Once they know that they're marketable, then they're going to go on to phase 2, which is creating their marketing materials, such as their resumes, their employment applications, their LinkedIn profiles. And what we want to do is take the data that they learn in phase 1 about themselves and about the market and help them to customize those materials to speak to the language of the employer. Phase 3 in a job search, you know where you want to go, you have your marketing materials. So phase 3 really is about how do you get yourself out there? How do you get people to know who you are? People always say it's who knows, who do you know? But I always like to say it's who knows what you know. So how can you educate people and talk to people about the value add that you bring? And finally, once you're out there and you're job searching, the plan is that the phone will start ringing. So we want to help job seekers be prepared in that moment to present themselves, to clearly articulate their value add, their strengths, and how they can benefit the employer. So that is the general phases of the job search. And what I'm going to talk through now are the plan for the Accelerator Navigator and how we would roll this out to job seekers. So next slide. So what we're looking at is a 3-week program. The first week is the same for all attendees, and then weeks 2 and 3 are customized based on the job search plan that they create. So I'll break down each week and talk about what they're going to learn. Next slide. All right, so the Career Accelerator Navigator program, week 1 really is about focus. So I talked about those 4 stages. Now in the next 3 weeks of the program, we will be breaking down and having each person identify where they are in their own job search. So the first week, everyone would attend a self-assessment seminar where they would clearly identify their skills and their interests and start identifying jobs that they want to target. From there, they'll have an opportunity to attend a class on how to do career exploration and career research, which really is how to break down, how to research a job, how to identify specific employment data, what is the salary. We all want to make a very high salary, but we have to make sure that what that job looks like is going to meet their basic and economic needs, and more importantly, have a sustainable and livable wage for the Bay Area. We'll investigate how to read a job ad to identify, are you truly marketable to that employer? Do you need more training to become more marketable? And then if you do need training, what are the resources out there for low, no cost training that people could tap into immediately? So with week 1, they're going to take these 2 workshops. Each workshop would be 2.5 hours. And then in addition to that, each participant would get 1 hour of career advising time, which is time to sit down with one of our career coaches to talk through what they learned through the workshops and how do they want to move forward. So where are they in their own job search? And what would be the correct next steps for them to successfully move ahead. So that brings us to week 2. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so in week 1, when they meet with the career advisor, what they're going to be doing is defining which electives they want to take in week 2 that will help them move forward with wherever they are in their job search. So as you can see, our elective tracks, there's 4 of them that align directly with those 4 phases of a job search I spoke about earlier. So if someone's more in the focus stage, we're going to spend a lot more time with them, helping them look at what are training options available to them through community partners, through online training, maybe through funding available through NOVA to pay for a certificate program. But really, what do they need to make themselves more marketable? For those who feel that they are pretty marketable, but they need to build that resume, then the second track that they can take is a 2.5 hour resume development workshop, which would go through how to read a job ad, how to target what the employer wants, and then how to translate that into a resume that speaks the language of the employer and gets the phone to ring. For those of people who feel that they're focused, who feel like their resume is already in pretty good shape, Another option in week 2 would be job searching, which would be strategies around how to get out there and market yourself, how to engage with your network, and how to tap into what we call the visible and the hidden job market, meaning jobs that may or may not be posted in the hidden job market. And once the resume is out there and you're actively networking, the whole goal is for the phone to start ringing. So that brings us to track 4, which is interviewing, which we would present a 2.5-hour workshop around the fundamentals of interviewing, how to answer common interview questions. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background. What's a strength? What's a weakness? What are your salary expectations? Really the whole gamut of what comes up in the interview. Our goal in this is to give people the tools that they would need to effectively market themselves. And again, at the end of week 2, there's an opportunity for each participant to engage with a career coach to talk through implementing the learning from the workshop that they took. Now, the goal is that, it'll be selected based on the interaction with the advisor, the electives are, there's 21 hours of training in this program that we're going through. The goal is not for a job seeker to take all 21 hours over 3 weeks. It's just a lot of training and would be completely overwhelming. What we want to do in week 1 when they're meeting with the advisor is really hone in and help them select the elective classes that would best meet their needs. But if a job seeker chose to take all of them, that would definitely be possible, and they could do that. So that brings us to week 3, which is another week of electives, which is building resilience and communication skills. So we would provide job seekers with an opportunity to take a 4-hour communications class, which would cover workplace communication skills, team building skills, consensus building skills, and how to engage in difficult conversations that can come up in the workplace and have those come out with a positive outcome. And then speaking about being positive, we have a class on positivity, which is really about resilience and how to reframe situations that come up that may be negative and turn them into a positive framework so you can have a successful emotional outcome with your interaction. So those are the 3 weeks of training. As I said, there's 21 hours. So next slide. 21 hours of available training over those 3 weeks. Through the course of the program, we're looking at offering 2 cohorts with 15 attendees in each session. Each attendee, again, would get 2 hours of one-on-one career advising time, which would help them plan and implement their job search activities. And between the 2 cohorts, we plan to survey attendees and staff and make any adjustments or modifications that we would want to see success in the program. So there was a brief overview. I'm sure there's questions. Feel free to ask.
With that, Ron, can you please go to slide 5 of the presentation, which has the questions for the commission to consider? And with that, Chair Norwood, if you would like to lead this portion for the commissioners to provide feedback or highlight any questions.
Respect, and I just wanted to ask, while you're developing this program, do you have any plan, like, say, give an example, we do business with the city of San Francisco. So one of the requirements they have put on us that any position we are advertising that need to be posted with the city and county of San Francisco, so the local people, they can benefit from that. Do you have any such program in the city of Milpitas?
I'll answer that, sir. No, we don't at the moment. What we do for anyone that is interested in joining NovaWorks is we provide an orientation explaining what we have to offer and offering them the chance to join and take advantage of those resources. One of the things that NovaWorks has really as part of our core culture is we don't like mandatory customers. So we don't take customers that have been mandated by EDD or by social services or really by anybody. We want to help job seekers that are ready to move forward, that are motivated to work with us. So I wouldn't want to see any program introduced that said, in order to do this, first you have to do that. Nova wouldn't want to be that.
And the follow-up question is that there are a lot of, there are two parties here. One party is seeking the employment. Another party is seeking the candidate for the employment. Let's say, for example, a restaurant owner is looking for a server. Cisco is looking for admin position or accounting position. Does this program take into consideration to reach out to the local employers and solicit what type of positions they're looking for? That would be a great service. If I'm the person looking for work, and if I come to you and saying, hey, here's a starter. These are the companies, Flextronics, Cisco, restaurant XYZ is looking for this thing, depending upon what your orientation is. That'd be a great service to the job seeker like me if I'm in the market. That'd be wonderful.
That's very much what NovaWorks is all about. We look into and study, as we talked about the results of our surveys last month, we're always trying to understand the needs of the business community.
Correct.
And we spend a lot of time looking for missing skills, anything that we can use as intelligence so that our job seekers have a better shot at being prepared for what those employers are looking for. We also have a business services team. So Jen manages the job seeker side. We have a business services team that works with employers. We have a job board. We participate in job fairs. We bring employers in to talk to customers and to meet customers on a regular basis. When we were open on site, we used to bring recruiters in on site to meet with our customers. We have LinkedIn groups that we give recruiters access to. So we do in many ways attempt to assist employers in finding the right person for their opening.
So Chris, so what you're saying that you have a platform. That's what I was looking for. Is there a platform for the employers and the platform for the potential employees where you can do kind of matchmaking between the job seekers and the employers?
That is pretty much the purpose of a workforce board.
Okay. Can you share that information with me, that what kind of platform do you have and how many people they know about the platform, both the job seekers as well as the employers?
I can certainly send you the information from our website where a lot of that information is captured. And we could always do better at getting the information out to both job seekers and employers. And that's one of the reasons that we're working so closely with Daniel, is to do that in Milpitas.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that question, Commissioner, one of the things that we've been talking with NovaWorks is really being able to marry those two pieces that you've identified about having the individuals participate in this program and then also make those connections, but making those connections specifically to Milpitas-based businesses and having them be connected to the job board. So that's something we've discussed and that we're going to continue to discuss. So that way, as we conduct the trainings and have the cohorts move forward, they have an opportunity to then get plugged into the local workforce here locally in Milpitas for jobs.
Great, because I see a lot of places you go, we are hiring. That means the jobs are available. If I'm the job seeker, if I don't know who's hiring, then I'm hitting in the dark. So what I'm saying that if we can create a platform for both the parties, the restaurant owner is looking for somebody, a Safeway is looking for somebody, Cisco is looking for somebody. So this way, people, they can see, and maybe they can modify their expectations. Like say, for example, if my mindset is that this is the only type of job that I'm going to do, but if I find out there's no market for my skill sets, I may come to you and think, my skill sets are no longer required in the market, so I need to be trained to come in the workforce. It helps both the employers as well as employees if more information is readily available.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in and just say, and that's why week one is so important, that everyone take this focus stage to really help them assess themselves and the market to make sure they're going after viable options.
So I'd like to bring it right. So I like to bring context back at the request of the Economic Development, Daniel DeGlue, as far as the key questions to consider for that they would like the feedback from this panel. And I would like to allocate, I'd probably say 8 minutes to this topic at this point. I would like to add the fact that there were a couple of things that were said earlier in the presentation that all align with this project. One, you heard Commissioner Mundra talk about the discovery, the guide that the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce has for the local businesses. You also saw that in the allocation of funding, there are dollars that are going to the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce, which is building relationships and has relationships with a number of these businesses, and also is aware of the businesses that have been lost, and also the ability for there to build their capacity. So the combination of the work that the city is doing on behalf with the allocation of ARPA funds to the Chamber of Commerce, the things that you hear that's happening at the Chamber of Commerce, and the work that NovaWorks is doing are all in line with exactly that you're referring to, Commissioner Dariani, as it moves forward, but it's all moving in the same direction. So I'd like to circle back to, as far as, are there any thoughts as far as the career navigation accelerator program in specific? I see Commissioner Mundra's hand up.
I had just a quick question, which is, so all the information provided by NovaWorks is pretty amazing. It's to me, it's just like magic to get all these results. So thank you for that. But I have a question: is in the current environment, can you make any comments on how to deal with these issues, the way things stand at this point, how to get interest in any fashion?
Yeah, so I'll tackle that. Daniel and I have had many conversations along these lines. And one of the things we initially wanted to do was start the training right away. And of course, then the variant happened and everything slowed down again. We've been anticipating an upsurge in job seekers a couple of times throughout this pandemic. And we've been disappointed each and every time as some new issue seems to delay people who are interested in returning to work. We really thought that fall, vaccines, and schools reopening were going to be the secret sauce. Over the summer, we started to see enrollments tick up a bit. And then, the variant hit hard again, and now enrollments are ticking down a bit. So my favorite answer to every question when somebody says what's going on in the labor market is it's too soon to tell. I saw this great line over Labor Day weekend in a New York Times article that said the research is unequivocal. We don't know what's going on. And that was an article that was titled, "Do we have a labor shortage?" We don't really know. We know that we need to get the information out far and wide. We could take more than 15 in a class, but we don't want to take less. We want to get the right size cohort. So on the timeline, we've pushed it out a little bit. Our reputation precedes us, and we do have a really strong reputation, but we need to get the information out that we're open, that we're doing things remotely, that we're helping people with technology solutions, and that now's the time to start getting prepared for what comes next.
Chris, I can share with you the data.
Thank you.
I can share. Are you done, Indrajit?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Chris, what we are finding out that after the benefits have expired, at least in our case, like we were looking for an accounting person, we put an ad on Indeed. The number of resumes that came in within 24 hours, that really surprised us. So that means there was some impact. There are people who were sitting on the sidelines. Their unemployment benefits were reasonably good enough. They were not really motivated to look for the jobs, but they are coming into the market. So all I can share with you, it's not a scientific data that we can share with you. All I can say is one of a kind, we put an ad, we received more than what we anticipated, the respondents to the ad within 24 hours. So that gives me an indication, and again, it's not scientific, it may be an anomaly, that we did receive more than our share of resumes for the position. And only disappointment was a lot of resumes, people, they don't do read what we're looking for. Either they have got automatic resume submission program that they keep throwing the resumes, whether they have the qualifications or not. That's a secondary problem. But the fact remains that I see personally, we saw that 2 positions we advertised, we had more responses than we normally get in, say, last 6 months or a year.
Thank you,
That's great to
Commissioner.
hear.
You know,
Context,
Chair-
gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to honor the discussion, but also want to honor everyone's time in terms of this process. So it sounds like there's additional discussion that needs to occur outside of this. So I would respectfully request Alex and Daniel set up a conversation and reach out to the commissioner members that would like to continue on this conversation in this particular item, because there is the action item for us is to receive the report and then possibly provide information specific to these 3 questions, but the context is moving outside of that scope.
Chair Norwood, I was just going to say the same thing. The key questions to consider are things that we need to get feedback on. So I didn't know, Chair Norwood and Daniel, if it made more sense for us to maybe take it offline for 24 hours, give the feedback maybe via email on these 3 questions so that we could move it forward. Because I agree. I think it's getting out of the context of the questions we're trying to answer here for NovaWorks.
Chair.
I definitely second that.
So Chair, Vice Chair, and membership, if there's a desire for that, yes, I think if we can receive your emails within the next 24 hours, that's great. And if you would like specifically for us to have one-on-one interviews with you, and we can get into these questions and get some feedback, we're happy to do that as well as staff. Your feedback is critical to this piece, so we're happy to work with the commission, whichever way the commission deems to be appropriate.
Thank you. We should move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So at this point, we will look to schedule that. Reach out to the commissioners as a group. Daniel, I'm going to look to schedule times with them so that this discussion can continue, and you can get these particular questions answered. And you may also want to think about reformulating the questions based on what you heard in this conversation, so that you're able to grasp the full context. And with that said, I'd like to, is there a motion to receive this report?
Chair Norwood,
Chair.
we still need to see if there's any public comment, and I'd like to share information about what the process is evolving to, because if the commissioners share information with staff in an email or a conversation, there is no way for us to obtain a consensus, and that's why we have these public gatherings under the Brown Act. So just we can have conversations, but we won't be able to inform the city council that there was consensus by the Economic Development and Trade Commission on certain things. But we can certainly have conversations with the members.
So then what you're saying is that you would put together a request form or a survey or something like that, so that we could capture the information electronically versus having the conversation, that you can share that with council.
That could be one way, to explore.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a recommendation to receive this
We
report?
need to check the public forum.
Public forum, I think it comes first.
Oh, that's right. Is there anything from public forum?
No, Chair Norwood, no raised hands for public comment.
Thank you.
Motion to receive.
We have a motion to receive. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, and roll call.
Starting with Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
yes from Commissioner Dariani, and Commissioner Jones
Yes.
and Commissioner Owaspi.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience again. And Alex, I hope you're taking note that some of these topics are rich, and that allocating 15 minutes is not, it's not going to get it done for these conversations moving forward. Next item on the agenda.
I'm going to share my screen.
Can I go ahead and make a motion to table item D, the manufacturing day?
Thank you for that, Vice Chair McNeil. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote.
Starting with Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Owaspi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 9C, Better Block Milpitas.
Good evening, good afternoon, rather, Economic Development Trade Commission. We're just gonna get right into it. Daniel Degu, our Economic Development Coordinator, is gonna give you a presentation, and then, yes, we can have a conversation. There has been a lot happening in a very short amount of time. There has been a established ad hoc subcommittee for the Main Street revitalization effort that's underway, and the Better Block initiative falls under that. We'll get a chance to get into that in just a little bit. So I'm going to hand it over to Daniel.
I have a hard break at 6:30, so I may sign off at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Andrade. And good afternoon for the second time, Commission, Economic Development Trade Commission. For the record, Daniel Degu, Economic Development Coordinator. As Director Andrade mentioned, today is really a presentation, and this is intended to serve as an update on the Better Block Milpitas initiative. Next slide. So as a reminder, the purpose of the Better Block Milpitas initiative is to reimagine spaces at the T intersection at Sarah Way and South Main Street through a 2-day build workshop demonstration. Next slide, please. So this here, the graphic on your left is our Better Block webpage. As you can see, the event is scheduled to take place on November 5th and 6th of 2021, Friday, Saturday. For the Friday event, that's going to take place between 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then on Saturday, it's going to go before you for 11 a.m. through 4 p.m. The image on the right is actually something I'm very excited to share about. The vendor applications are now available online, and applications will close on the 27th. So this is a flyer that reflects that, and there'll be more marketing materials that will be developed over the next week or so. And so we'll be providing that information to the commission and to the public as well. But this is just a graphic of what is currently available as it relates to the vendor application. Next slide. Okay, so some deliverables. We've done a lot since our August EDTC meeting. We've held 3 weekly calls with the project team. The project team met on August 18th, 25th, and on September 1st. We've presented a project update to the Main Street Revitalization Ad Hoc Council Subcommittee on September 10th with Alex just mentioned, our Director of Economic Development. We are currently in the process of developing a project design for the 2-day build. We are working very hard at developing a local marketing and outreach campaign that will be very hyper-focused and will push out information to our community promoting the event, as well as our neighboring cities as well. And then we've also developed the vendor application. We're now accepting applications for food and retail vendors. The application period will close on September 27th. And the priority, as we mentioned at the last EDTC meeting in August, is focused on Milpitas-based businesses. Next slide, please. So as Alex, our director, mentioned, with that subcommittee meeting, the direction was to scale back the event. And so what we are looking to do moving forward is to bring the Better Block Milpitas initiative to a central location, which is the Central Plaza. That is the property that's owned by Matt Lee. And so this is the site where you'll be seeing the Better Block Milpitas initiative take place on those 2 days. Next slide. Here are some elements that you will see for those 2 days. When you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see an entrance that would be available to the public, and it's really inviting. This is using plastic pipe that will be very colorful and very attractive as a display. When you look at the next image to your right, which is in the middle, there's a dream box couch is what it says. That is a part of the build. These are benches that would be built and used in an area where we have the dirt lot near the Central Plaza, which is a part of the activation site. And these will be used by members of the public for seating arrangements throughout the 2-day event. We are also partnering with the Great Mall Tire for this event. And so they will be loaning us some tires, and we'll be repurposing this and using them as planters and tire seating. So it's a very exciting way to create through this build. We'll also have a bistro set where there'll be tables and chairs for people to sit and gather. There'll be entertainment. There'll be a stage, a very, very activated space. And again, we're currently working on the design, but as soon as we get the designs done, we will be sharing that with this commission. We'll also be integrating art in the project. That's a very important piece to the build and to revitalization. There will be an art mural that will be taking place along the Sinorama site, which is the vacant retail space near Central Plaza. We were going to have a pop-up gallery, but it's very duplicative because we're also using the former Sinorama site as an art gallery. So that will no longer be moving forward with this project as we're scaling down, but the art elements will still be included for the 2-day event. And then now moving on up, this is a mobile library trailer that's going to be provided by the Milpitas Library located on Main Street. So that's very exciting for families to take part in the various books that will be available to the community. And then that picture that you see upward, which is showing a kiosk, that's the Roberts kiosk. These will be the vendor sites that will be used throughout the event, where food vendors and retail vendors will be operating out of throughout the event. And this is something that we'll be building as a community during the 2-day event. So this is a high level of some of the elements that you can anticipate seeing during the 2-day event. We'll be coming back to the commission in October, and we'll be providing more information as we continue to build this design collectively. Next slide. And this is my last slide, and then we'll open up for questions. So next steps, as I mentioned, we'll be coming back to the commission on October 11th, 2021, with an update on the project. And before I close, I wanted to thank, on behalf of the Office of Economic Development, thank all the Better Block community leaders and volunteers for their commitment and involvement in supporting this project. The project team is meeting with city staff and our consultant, the Better Block Foundation, regularly to develop several elements of the project. The Office of Economic Development would also like to thank our Economic Development and Trade Commission, as this commission last month selected Commissioner Gomez, Commissioner Jones, and Chair Norwood as EDTC liaisons to the project. So our office would also like to thank our City Manager's Office, EDTC Council Liaison, Councilmember Karina Dominguez, Councilmember Chua, and Vice Mayor Montano for your leadership and continued support for this project. And with that, I'll bring this back to the commission for questions.
I have a question. So this is now scaled back to the parking lot, and I've noticed the businesses are doing well these days. The parking lot is fuller than it used to be. So how are we? And I recall that the times are going to be on Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And Saturday 10 a.m. to 2. So on the Friday, how are you going to be able to have enough for the parking for the businesses that are currently there, as well as this event?
That's a very good question, Vice Mayor. There are several locations throughout the area.
I'm not Vice Mayor yet, but
Vice Chair. I'm sorry about that.
yeah, thank you.
There are several parking lots that are available in the nearby area that we plan to activate. We are in the process of having conversations with some of those property owners. And so we are fully aware that on the particular sites itself, there will likely not be parking, but we do feel that we have a strategy in place that will allow us to have adequate parking for the event on the 2 days, given the surrounding parking spaces that are available.
And I would add that we're working with our planning department, and our planning director, Ned Thomas, is making sure that we require that there be sufficient parking for patrons that are going to those particular businesses. So we're working on a plan.
Other thing you can consider beside the traffic will be the traffic management. If you can block out a couple of blocks, because that area is very well traveled. So traffic management will be another thing you may consider.
Yes, that's a very important for this project. Generally speaking, we typically, the Better Block Foundation model does not close streets, as we're trying to see revitalization with existing conditions. And so what we'll look to do is actually implement traffic calming measures that will allow for safety as a priority. So that way, as people are gathering and enjoying the build together, we're also creating an environment that's safe for everyone. So we will integrate those measures to ensure that that it's safe for all. And we'll talk more with our consultant on your comment, Commissioner, as that's a very important one that we should continue to consider for this project.
For the safety of the people we are attending, it will be prudent to provide detours so that the traffic in that area is not there. I would strongly suggest, besides providing the parking, something need to be done at traffic management, providing basically a detour so that you're not stopping the traffic, but basically you're diverting traffic around that block so that people who are in that block, they feel safe, particularly the children.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Commissioner Gomez. I have a question. Is there any guidance as to if the Better Blocks event is going to be for vaccinated only, or is it going to be for all?
Right. So we're working very closely with our city manager's office, Commissioner Gomez, on this one, but we will be following all public health measures that are being implemented in our county for this event.
I can also add that in conversations we've had with our city manager's office, that for the build on Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, we will ask those volunteers to provide proof of vaccination. We obviously are still in a pandemic, and our city's local emergency is still in effect. So we want to ensure to keep public health and safety. So at the very least, we will do that for the build. Perhaps other measures may be discussed as we get closer to that date.
So vaccinated only, or show proof of a negative test result?
Thus far, we've talked about vaccinated, but we'll continue having conversations with our city manager's office. And we'll let you know, as well as the public, of course.
Thank you for that was an excellent question, Commissioner Gomez. Thank you for that. Are there any
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions by the commissioners? Excellent. Director Anzari, are there any additional items that you'd like to, let's see, we agreed that we would be here till 6:30 this evening, is that correct?
The times on the agenda are really meant for guiding the conversation. So we just never know. There's certain discussion topics that may take a little bit longer, others that take less. So if that is it, I mean, if you're interested in bringing back the quick update that Nicole and Amina, our economic development specialist, was going to give as it relates to our October Manufacturing Day, we will actually have that event before our next EDTC meeting. If not, we can provide a memo and or follow up with an email just to give you a sense of the overall event. It'll be our 5th annual event.
Absolutely. So I
was just going to say, Chair, before we move forward the item, just to ensure that we allow for public comment.
Thank you. Is there
Chair
any?
Norwood, there are no for public comment.
Okay. May I ask the commissioner to allow us an additional 7 minutes of time to go till approximately 6:30 to bring item number.
Well, let's, I'm sorry, Chair. Can I make a motion to receive?
Oh, thank you for that. Is there a motion to receive the report regarding Better Block?
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Oops.
Starting with Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
and Commissioner Owaspi.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. I did just get a message from Ron that we do have a hard stop at 6:30 to allow for a next meeting, I believe.
I do have a hard stop at 6:30, so if we can wrap it up by 6:30, that'd be greatly appreciated.
So with that said, is there a motion to bring back the item for a brief discussion or a brief update in terms of Manufacturing Day?
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I
Second.
second it.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call.
Chair Norwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil,
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Commissioner Mundra.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
and Commissioner Owaspi.
Yes.
Nicole, do you have a presentation? I think if you don't, we can probably just give an update.
Yes, mine is
Please.
just a verbal update, no slides.
Thank you.
And I'll keep it brief. So starting with the date, October 7th is when we will be holding our 5th annual Manufacturing Day in Milpitas. Similar to last year, we will be keeping it a virtual format. I don't think COVID is at a place yet where we're comfortable to have an in-person event, unfortunately. So for everybody's safety, it will be a virtual format. It will be 10:30 a.m. to noon on October 7th. And this year we are focusing on 3 primary objectives. The first is to explore career pathways in manufacturing. And this part of the panel discussion will focus on raising awareness of the variety of jobs that exist in the manufacturing sector, the various academic paths that can lead students to those jobs, what skill sets employers are looking for. And we hope to have this variety of jobs and career pathways reflected in the types of panelists that we'll have in our discussion. The second area of focus during our discussion is to bring attention to the need for more women in manufacturing. We want to raise awareness around the gender gap that exists in the manufacturing sector, which is typically more of a male-dominated area. We want to talk about the benefits of having a more diverse workforce and how our female panelists have overcome their personal challenges and what Milpitas Union School District audience members should keep in mind as they go forward in their academic and career paths. And our last area, or third area of focus, will be trends and lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly as it relates to how it has affected our manufacturing companies. So for example, some of the topics we can touch on in this area are how did COVID expedite any conversations around reshoring, any conversations around the supply chain, what kind of funding is available for building manufacturing jobs back in the US, and perhaps how can we as a city of Milpitas tap into those dollars to rebuild jobs in manufacturing at the city level. Our audience for Manufacturing Day, as it always is to engage as many Milpitas Union School District students as possible. Last year, we had a very successful event with, I believe, over 400 students and staff at MUSD who came out, and we are currently engaging with MUSD, including Superintendent Cheryl Jordan, to coordinate a similar turnout and engagement as last year. As far as the panelists go, we are looking to finalize details on that this week. So far, we have confirmed NovaWorks to speak on workforce development. We'll have a representative from TDK Headway Technologies, a production manager, who's been a 13-year employee of TDK Headway, and she has a lot to share about her journey coming to the U.S. as an immigrant and progressing in her career in manufacturing. And our third panelist, we are still confirming. And so we should have those details to you very soon. A save the date flyer will be going out this week through our various social media channels and through our constant contact and webpage and so forth. And I'd like to close on, I'd like to close on Manufacturing Day as a part of the partnership that the city has with MUSD, specifically as part of the MUSD Alliance Partners Program for Future Ready Learners. As outlined in the MOU that was signed earlier this year, Manufacturing Day was specifically called out as a way to increase the Milpitas employment rate for high wage jobs beyond 25%, support Milpitas business community, and provide MUSD learners, parents, and residents with global skills in driving the future of work. So we are excited to engage in this partnership with MUSD, engage with our manufacturing partners in the community, and of course, inspire our students locally to find their calling in manufacturing. So please follow up with me with any questions you may have about the program, and you all will get an invitation to the event very soon.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
I think we need public comment first, please.
Oh, that's right.
Are there any public comments?
No raised hands for public comment.
Awesome. Is there a motion?
I can make a motion. This is Commissioner Rice.
We have a motion and we have a second.
I second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Aswati. Roll call.
Starting with Chair Norwood, please.
Yes.
Vice Chair McNeil.
Yes.
Commissioner Mundra.
Yes.
Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Commissioner Dariani.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
And Commissioner Waspi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. And thank you everyone for your time. 6:27, a couple of minutes to go. Take care.
Everybody.
Nicole?
Yeah.
Nicole, okay. I know we still need to, I believe, adjourn the meeting, but I erroneously, when we were going through to approve the agenda from the last meeting, I needed to abstain. I said yes, but I was not there. So if you can make that correction, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Rice. I'll reflect that change in the minutes.
And motion to adjourn then.
No, I second it.
Oh, meeting adjourned.
Sorry, I didn't catch. Who was
Thank you.
that?
Enjoy it.
Night all.
Right.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Be
Sure.
well.
Thank you.